6 years ago, my brother stole the love of my life, the woman I was about to propose to. Now, at our father's funeral, he walked in holding her hand and said, "Some guys just finished first." I just smirked. Turned to him and said, "You still working that office job?" Then my wife stepped out of the limo, and when he saw who she was, he nearly dropped her hand. Exactly 6 long years ago. I had the engagement ring burning a hole in my pocket. It was a modest princess-cut diamond, paid for with grueling months of savings from my entry-level job, but I honestly thought Sarah would love it. I walked into our shared apartment, my heart pounding in my chest, ready to drop to one knee. Instead, I found her hastily packing a duffel bag in the hallway, while my older brother, Mark, stood leaning arrogantly against the doorframe. He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just gave me this half-pitying, half-smug smile that made my blood run cold. Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye as she nervously muttered something about needing a real man who knows where his life is going. Mark had just landed a mid-level corporate gig and bought a flashy leased BMW. I was just a quiet, struggling younger brother trying to build a tech startup from scratch. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a punch even though every instinct in my body begged me to. I just set the velvet box quietly on the kitchen counter, turned around and walked out of their lives completely. My family called me bitter when I skipped their wedding, but it wasn't bitterness. It was absolute ice-cold clarity. I cut contact with Mark entirely. I poured every ounce of that betrayal into my work. My tech startup, the one Sarah mocked, eventually took off. I sold it 4 years later for a sum that meant I never had to check a price tag again. But more importantly, during that grueling climb, I met Victoria. Victoria wasn't just beautiful. She was a force of nature. She was the youngest partner at a top-tier private equity firm in the city. We didn't just fall in love, we became a powerhouse team. We built our lives in quiet luxury. No flashy social media posts, just pure unadulterated success. Then my father passed away. I flew back to my hometown to pay my final respects to the man who raised us. I arrived at the cemetery slightly late to avoid the family drama. The sky was a heavy, oppressive gray, matching the somber mood of the scattered attendees. I stood near the back, keeping a strict distance, wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that subtly whispered money. I had told Victoria to meet me there after her morning board meeting. She insisted on coming to support me, arranging a private car so she could work on the commute. As the service concluded, people began mingling near the exit. That's when I heard his voice. Loud, boisterous, and entirely inappropriate for a funeral. Well, look who finally decided to show up. I turned to see Mark. He was wearing an ill-fitting black suit that looked like it hadn't been tailored since his wedding day. Clinging tightly to his arm was Sarah. She looked tired, the 6 years having worn away that arrogant spark she used to have. She wore a forced smile, but her eyes nervously darted away when they met mine. Mark was practically beaming. He pulled her closer, aggressively intertwining his fingers with hers, making sure I saw the ring. "Glad you could finally make it, little bro," he sneered, his voice dropping low enough so only we could hear. Though I guess some guys just finished first, huh? He was standing at our father's grave, and all he cared about was trying to assert dominance over a 6-year-old Victory. It was pathetic. I didn't flinch. I just looked him up and down, feeling absolutely nothing but a cold, heavy wave of pity. I let a very slow smirk cross my face. "You still working that office job, Mark? Senior regional analyst at Vanguard Holdings, right?" Mark frowned, clearly confused by the pivot. "Yeah, so what? I'm up for director next quarter. I do very well for us." "That's good to hear," I said softly, glancing over his shoulder. A sleek black Maybach silently pulled up to the curb just behind the gathering. The chauffeur stepped out and opened the rear door. My wife stepped out. Victoria looked breathtaking in a sharp, tailored black trench coat, her presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone nearby. Mark turned to look, his sneer faltering. Then all the color violently drained from his face. His jaw physically went slack. He nearly dropped Sarah's hand, stumbling a half step backward. He recognized her. Of course he did. Victoria's firm, Sterling Capital, had just finalized a hostile takeover of Vanguard Holdings 3 days ago. The internal emails about massive restructuring and executive layoffs had been dominating his company's news cycle. He was staring at the ruthless new majority shareholder who now held his entire mediocre career in the palm of her hand. Victoria walked over, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. She slipped her hand into mine, radiating absolute elegance. "Darling," she said softly to me, then turned her piercing gaze to my brother. "You must be Mark. I've been reviewing your department's financials all morning. We have a lot to discuss on Monday." Mark couldn't speak. He just stood there, completely broken, while Sarah stared at my wife in stunned inadequacy. I gave my brother one last cold smile. "Like you said, Mark, some guys just finished first."